All right, so this is a Committee on Public Works. Um, I'm Vinnie Piccirilli, I'm the chair. Anthony Donato is the vice chair, and Tony Palumbo is the secretary. Tony will be taking the minutes for tonight. So after a long hiatus, we're able to get together by Zoom to sort of start working through our backlog of committee referrals. So tonight we had three recycling referrals. So as you all know, you read the agenda because you were able to find a link to log in. So one is to perform the cost benefit analysis on organic and inorganic waste recycling and develop policy guidance for the town council to approve with consideration given to establishing a volunteer advisory committee. The second one is consider participating in the Simple Like program. And the third one is consider conducting a recycling survey with Republic Services, who is our waste hauler. So first of all, let me just sort of put this in context just before we begin. So I've spoken to many of you about this, and I'm actually extremely excited about embarking on examining what we're doing with our municipal solid waste and recycling. To put this in context, I had sent around the Massachusetts Municipal Solid Waste Plan, which came out almost a year ago for 2030. The target is a 30% reduction in municipal solid waste by 2030. So that is a goal that the state has set. We, as the town of Watertown, need to figure out a way to reduce our current trash tonnage by 30% between now and 2030. And just so you know, we're currently sending about 10,000 tons a year to the incinerator. So we need to reduce that by 30%, which is 3,000 tons. The other thing that informs our work is that the Republic waste hauling contract, which is a 5-year contract, that expires on June 30th, 2022. Typically, a year before that contract expires, the administration begins the process of looking at what we want to do to renew the contract, what things we want to change, what new things we want to ask for. So that's coming up soon, a year and a half. So I'd like to sort of make some progress on what we could do by then. Just so you know, when we renewed that last contract in June of 2017, food waste pickup and recycling was something we talked about, and let me get Kenny admitted. And that's but the market wasn't ready. It just we couldn't get that to work. So that we never really made any progress on that in 2017. So keep those in mind, and I sent everybody, or those of you on my email list, that so you could kind of see where it is. So I anticipate that there are going to be a lot's going to go on with recycling. There's going to be additional referrals for recycling to the Public Works Committee that I think we're going to take up. But I think figuring out how to do this food waste recycling is going to be a time-consuming task. And what I would like to talk to my fellow committee members, think about sort of setting up like a meeting once a month so we can sort of work through this for the next 6, 9, whatever months, or however long it takes. I don't want to set a time limit on it. So that's something we'll talk about that sort of at the end. And I see Kenny Woodland has just joined us, so thanks, Kenny, for joining. So before we get started, and then the last thing I just want to say, Matt Schuman was so as everyone knows, we're down some staff in the DPW. So Matt Schuman was going to come tonight, but he was something came up and he was unable to make it. So we actually have no staff here tonight, which is okay because the first agenda item really has some sort of policy and planning element to it, how we're going to operate. So I think we can do a lot tonight, even without getting input from the staff. But because there's nobody from the staff here, we're not actually going to vote to make any actions for the DPW without them present, just so everyone knows that. So before we get started, any questions? Okay. I don't see any. So the first thing, so this first referral, so one is what we're going to do with cost benefit analysis on food waste recycling and develop guidance. But the second piece of that is consideration given to establishing a volunteer advisory committee. And I think it'd be good that we take that up first, if everyone's okay with that. So that, we talked quite a bit about that. And to give this some context, we used to have a recycling advisory committee, which ended up being disbanded by the town council in October of 2014 for a variety of reasons. And part of that is once we went live with the single stream recycling and the automated trash pickup, it just, there wasn't a lot for the recycling committee to do because the public works committee had basically spent 4 years developing that plan. I also sent around as a reminder the open meeting law about public bodies and what that would, because if we were to create even an ad hoc committee and appoint members to it, they would still be bound by the open meeting law. So we'll take up the sort of how to use the citizen volunteers. And I know I do want to recognize the people, Judy, Andrew, I guess who else was on that list? Emma and Ernesta and others. Alyssa was there. I'm trying to think who was on that email. There's probably many people there who were involved, and Meredith and others who've been working for the last year and a half and sort of researching this. And I truly appreciate it. And I appreciate both Andrew and Judy had sent me information on that. And I talked to some of you others on the phone to discuss it. So I think a lot's been done. I think let's take up first for the committee how we want to formally structure this going forward. So does anybody want to begin, or do you want me to give my thoughts first, or how to, I'm just talking to Anthony and Tony, how do you want to do that? Or do we want to give, I know Judy wanted to just spend a few minutes talking about stuff. I'm really happy to have Judy talk if you'd like for a couple of minutes, and then take questions from the public before we start. What do you, Tony and Anthony, what do you think? Want to just hear from people first?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I agree with Anthony.
Okay. All right. So Judy, did you have something to present, or did you want to just talk?
Well, I don't really have a presentation. I'm not sure, though, if everybody has the informal composting committee findings summary to which I would want to refer.
Just so you know, I sent it to the full council. So Tony, Anthony, Caroline, Kenny all have that.
Okay. Well, I can send it to the group here afterwards, but so I don't distract myself. How about if I just talk about that which we have already started to do, because I think we've started to do what you're describing, although it's a large job. But let me just say, So, and I was on that original Recycle Advisory Committee, by the way, back in 2011, 12. And so that was an official committee that Jerry Mee actually came and sat in on sometimes. And there was somebody else and a staff person. So that's the kind of committee that was existing at that time. But what happened with this committee is I'm the school garden coordinator, and I was interested in getting composting into the schools. It's part of their curriculum, and you know, for the food service and for the good of the environment. And the schools were going to be rebuilt. So I started showing up at the Watertown Faces Climate Change committee, which was talking about composting, and within 6 months, well, first of all, we did that compost forum in October of last year, which was very well attended, and people were very interested in the topic. And then we started meeting on a regular basis and talking about how could we make composting happen. We had somebody from Wellesley, where they were already doing some collecting food waste. And of course, food waste is a quarter at least of our municipal waste stream, and it produces a lot of greenhouse gases, and it could be instead put back into the soil or used as a fuel. And so it protects the environment in several ways, is what I teach the kids. So how do we start to collect food waste? So we looked at 3 towns around here: Newton, Arlington, and well, I guess we must have looked at Wellesley to some extent, but Arlington, Newton, Cambridge was the other one.
Cambridge.
They all have very different systems for doing this.
We looked at
Cambridge, yeah. They all have very different systems for doing this. So that kind of complicates it right off the bat. The other thing is, should we start with some sort of a pilot? Should people be putting money in? And I'm just kind of paraphrasing what's in the informal composting findings. But basically, we were trying to figure out, we thought that curbside pickup was probably going to be important, although drop-off is one way that people are doing it. Of course, the program shouldn't cost more than it costs to just throw the stuff in the trash. But it's a moving target, right? Because, I mean, where the trash is going and how much food waste is in there is a moving target. People are finding new ways to recycle food waste, and all organic waste. And then we started talking a little bit of inorganic waste, and the picture kind of has to kind of all fit together. Maybe not having service all from one company, which is what we've been doing. Cambridge, Arlington, and Newton don't do that. None of them do that, I think. And I mean, I don't have the details on the top of my tongue, on the tip of my tongue. But the other thing is that there's a really important piece about outreach to the community, because anything that we do to change the way that people throw away their trash, we need to teach them about how that works and why that's important to get buy-in. So it's cost, but it's also the benefit to the community. The other piece is we really feel strongly that the cost of just throwing trash, just throwing food waste and other compostables in the municipal waste stream is really a large cost in the long run to the environment, the air and the water. And that's got to be another piece that we're looking at. Let me see. So we were just proposing that a committee be designed to continue this kind of work, looking at what are other people doing, what are the costs, what are the benefits, and the costs in terms of the environment, but also sort of the PR educational cost, because this isn't going to work unless people understand that it's important and this is something that they're motivated to do. Does that sound about right to my fellow committee members? And Caroline was also going to say something about the community participation piece, which I think is really important.
Yep. So I see Caroline had her hand up, and I see Jolly has her hand up too. So, so that's great, Judy. So Tony, if I could just make a note when you do the minutes that said there was an attachment, and we can attach that as attachment A to the.
Yep. Yep, and I'll send that along.
Yeah, no, well, we already have it. So we.
Oh, you're right.
Okay, so Caroline and then Jolly.
Thanks. So I just wanted to say, actually, it was November 3rd. I looked at the flyer. So it was almost exactly a year ago that we had that forum, and it was hugely successful. It was very well attended. And it brought the important thing was it brought the leaders, residents, activists, and the administration together. And the amazing thing was, we all agreed that, the then superintendent of public works was supportive, and everybody in the audience was supportive. It was actually an amazing, overwhelming consensus that we need to bring organic recycling to Watertown. So I'm glad that we're finally getting started with this. The other thing is all the town councilors, maybe the rest of you don't know this, but even in just the last month, how many emails have we gotten about recycling? At least 3, maybe 4 that has gone to all the town councilors. And then I've had conversations with residents about it. This is really just an ongoing theme that's going through the town, and that residents are thinking about, that we need to start talking about this. The other thing I wanted to mention was last Tuesday night, I went and I joined the Sunrise Watertown, a youth group. It's mainly high school students and some college age students. And it's a group that really wants to get serious about addressing climate change. And they had a Wide Awake Watertown protest, and they marched with I don't know if anybody heard it, because they really did go through Watertown, banging pots and saying, "Wake up, Watertown."
They walked right past my front door.
And I went with them, and they were they're trying to wake us up to the climate crisis. And they started at the high school, but they ended up at town hall, and they had a speech saying, "We are calling on the town council to do something. It's time." And so I just wanted to say that I feel like this is one place where we can start telling the students we heard them, telling them that we're listening, and that we really do want to act, and that this is the time that we can actually do something to help the town help address some of the issues around climate change and our environment. And I'm really excited that we're moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Caroline. So Jolly?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up, but we did, when we had our forum, and I was going to say it was in November because it was the first Sunday, it was before election. I remember that was right. I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up, but we called ours composting. But when I met, actually Caroline and I met with Deb Allenberg, who is the head in Cambridge, and she suggested that it be organic and inorganic recycling, not composting. And she also suggested that we move it to the title B under waste management, because that's what it is. So I just wanted to say very early on, I think the language should be organic and inorganic recycling. It does look like, from what I've been reading, we're not going to be able to do single stream anyway, because if glass is in there and it breaks, it makes everything else not usable. So it's even in the inorganic recycling, we're probably not going to be doing single stream composting, not composting, trash management.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say, is that we get clear on our language, basically.
Okay. Pat?
Yeah, I think organic and inorganic is, that's the language we want to use. And I just want to speak briefly. about the difference between backyard composting and something like a town pickup. I've done backyard composting for 40 years. About a year ago, one of the companies sent out a flyer saying that if I wanted to sign up when a certain number of people from Watertown had joined, the price would go down and I could get that price. So I did that. I didn't know why I was doing it, because I have a backyard composter. And the reason I do it is because it is a total different experience. They take everything. My trash now is a small bag of dirty Kleenex and 2 soup cartons. They take cardboard, they take all kinds of paper towels. You don't need to worry about the bleach. They take your newspapers if you want. They take pizza boxes. I don't have many of those. Eggshells, corn cobs, everything. There is nothing they don't take. And it's just very different from what I'm used to in terms of composting in my backyard. And I just want to say, I think it's the answer.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to weigh in on anything? Tony?
I just want to suggest for those people who haven't had a chance to read it, to definitely read the piece that Andrew wrote that summarized our meetings over the summer. It was a well-written and outlined piece, and if you haven't had a chance to see it, please do. It also included a couple of appendices. One, a letter that maybe Meredith can speak to, but it was a really nice summary, and I would recommend for those in the audience who haven't had a chance to look at it, please do. It will be, as Councilor Picciarelli said, attached to the minutes. And though he's not here, we want to put a shout out to Andy for his hard work on this informal working group that we had. That's all. Thank you.
Right.
Penny, if I could just, I want to just echo what Pat said. My wife and I are coming up on about a year with Black Earth, and we have almost no trash. You know, in our house, it would almost make sense to flip-flop and do recycling every week and trash every other week, because we just generate so little trash now that we're able to compost so much material. So I think it's really.
Yeah, and if I could just add, John, just one sec, I see your hand up. So if I just add that, you know, if you look at the 2030 state municipal solid waste master plan, the target is by 2050 for the actual trash to be zero. So it's very aggressive. And of course, you know, one of the things, so cost, I'm glad, you know, Judy brought up about cost. Back in, we worked from 2008 through 2012 to launch the single stream recycling and automated trash pickup. It took a long time. It took a lot of work. It was a culture change. The first year, we ran it, we introduced it. We reduced our total trash tonnage from 14,000 tons to 9,500 tons, which saved us approximately $900,000 a year in tipping fees at the incinerator. That's real money. Talk about burning money. Okay, we weren't burning money, because when we send our trash to the incinerator, it just goes up in flames. So, and what did we do with that $900,000 savings? Remember, this was 2012. We were in the midst of the economic crisis. We actually used that to level fund the school department. So that's real saving. And you know, there was a lot of people who felt that going to single stream recycling was just some sort of fad, feel good fad. But the reality is, it saved money. It saved almost $1 million the first year. That's real money. And is both Pat and Anthony pointed out, and others, the heaviest thing in the trash is the wet stuff. Right. The food waste, you know, the stuff that's wet, because water is heavy, right? And once you take all the wet stuff out of your garbage, What's left is very light. It's like plastic wrappers and things, which is, dirty tissue, stuff that really has very little weight. And again, if you think about, right now at the incinerator, we're paying $77 a ton, which we're on track to spend $770,000 this year in tipping fees. So if you can reduce the weight by 50%, because you take out all the heavy stuff, or even more, it saves a lot of money. And the other thing is it doesn't smell. So one of the and everybody knows the issue about weekly trash pickup versus biweekly recycling pickup. The reality is, we can't flip those around because people have smelly garbage and they need to get rid of it. They can't keep it in their house or in their garage. And there's sort of a public health issue about picking up garbage weekly. Once you take food waste out of your garbage, it doesn't smell, and it is no longer a public health issue to store it for 2 weeks. So in the long term, if we ever want to get to, biweekly trash pickup, we are going to need to solve the issue of getting food waste out of the garbage stream. So this is all very exciting stuff. Jolly, you had your hand up. You wanted to add
Yeah,
something?
I was going to say, following what Anthony said, in Minneapolis, they have switched it. So they are doing the organic weekly and the inorganic biweekly, because it just makes sense, and because the trash, the inorganic, has been so reduced
Right.
that there's very little of it, actually. So they've reversed that there to Anthony's point. And then I think in Cambridge, and Caroline, you can maybe second this. I don't know if you remember, but Deb said I don't know if it's called the tipping fee when you pay for dropping off. Is that what you're referring to, Vinny?
Yes.
Okay, the tipping fee for organic trash or organic recycling in Cambridge is $70 a ton. And for inorganic, it's $110 a ton. So they're saving enough money, even with putting on an extra truck, 2 more people, and paying the benefits for those 2 people in that truck. They're still saving money by doing it this way. So, I mean, we can follow up and get that information again, but that's what I remember her saying.
Recorded.
So just, yeah, and to that point, so our contract, it's fiscal year 21, which we're in now, is $77 a ton, and it increases to end of the contract fiscal year 2025 at $87 a ton. It's actually a lot cheap. We sent it to the Wheelabrator incinerator in Andover, North Andover. Generally speaking, it's cheaper to send it to the incinerator than it is to a landfill. Landfill, you will pay the $100+ a ton because it's more expensive. But still, even for every ton we save, it's we save $77, and we're currently running about 10,000 tons a year.
Mm-hmm.
So just to put this in the scheme of things, going back to the state, the solid waste master plan. So to meet the target for 2030, the plan, we have to 30% reduction, which is 3,000 tons of garbage. If we can reduce, our goal to meet the state goal would be to reduce that by 3,000 tons. And if we could come up with a plan, I mean, if we do it over 10 years, that's, that's 3,000 tons, that's, 300 tons a year, and divide that by this 15,000 households in Watertown. So right now, I mean, that's about 15,000 households. That's about 1,300 pounds a year of garbage that we pick up from each household. And there's household size is 2.1 people. So that comes about to 625 pounds a year per person of garbage. So just to put it in context of, what our task is to develop a strategy to reduce that. So, so it's, in my mind, it's doable. What we really need to do is, as we found with going to single stream recycling, education of the public, education of our colleagues, education of the town administration. There's a lot of education to making it happen, and number one, and then number two, coming up with a plan that makes sense. And I will tell you, if we come up with a plan that makes sense, if we could save 30% of $770,000 or $870,000, that's real money. And the administration would be very happy to embark on a program that saves that kind of money. So our job is to figure out what that plan is going to be, and working with the DPW and whatever consultants that we use, because there is a lot of expertise in the Republic that we use, and whoever else we may want to use. So if we don't have, so this is a great, I'm really excited about this. And so the first thing, so I want to go back to sort of the discussion about the committee, the volunteer committee. And I know in the document from the ad hoc group, the Watertown Faces Climate Change group, is that to reactivate the Recycling Advisory Committee. That was, I believe, one of the recommendations in that. And a lot's changed, and I think we saw this back when we did the single stream recycling, is that the starting basically in 2008, the Public Works Committee took a much more active role in managing the Department of Public Works and making policy decisions for the council to give to the Department of Public Works. And Judy, who was on the committee at that time, will tell you that the result of that was the Recycling Advisory Committee became, they really didn't have much input into what was going on and what we were doing. So I'm not certain, so for a couple of reasons, I'm not certain that that's the best way to go, because there's a lot of logistics in creating an actual committee of the town, including doing an ordinance, having the manager do interviews and appointments, having the council confirm them. And it takes a long time. And for those of you, the last committee we just created was the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, and that took over a year to kind of get that going. So personally, I want you all to assist us in the Public Works Committee starting now. I don't want to wait another year till we get the logistics put together. So that's just selfishness on my part. Number two, I did forward around the public, the open meeting law, and a lot has changed since the last time. And under the open meeting law, there's a whole issue of what's a public body. And a public body is defined under the law as any multi-member board, committee, subcommittee, if established to serve a public purpose. And this includes any multi-member body created to advise or make recommendations to the public body. So if we were to create an official recycling advisory committee, even to report to the Public Works Committee to make recommendations, that would be, you would have to be appointed as a official member and become a town official and be subject to the public open meeting law, which means posting agendas, not meeting or speaking to each other except in a posted public meeting, holding meetings by Zoom, publishing minutes of what occurs in the meeting. Like we do on the council, like we're doing here with the Public Works Committee. And just thinking out loud, I'm not sure that the group of you want to operate under those conditions. And quite honestly, I think that that's really overkill, considering all the good work you've done to date. So I'm just going to throw this out there for discussion purposes. I honestly think that historically, the committees, Public Works Committee and other committees, have always worked with citizen volunteers assisting us, doing research for us, participating in meetings, and helping us shape policy. And I don't see why this should be any different than that. And so I would like to, but I would like to add a little more formal structure to it to recognize the work you're doing, and also to be able to, as we work over the next year, to assign tasks to individuals to help inform us on what we're doing and help us do research. So I'm envisioning this to be more citizen volunteers, and maybe I would like us to, create volunteer recycling researchers, if that's a term, and that you would inform the committee on recycling best practices and waste diversion technologies, and to assist the committee in developing strategies to achieve Watertown's goal of reducing its municipal trash tonnage by 30% by 2030, as well as any other goals outlined in the Massachusetts Solid Waste Master Plan. So that's how I'm thinking would be the best way to go forward. I think it allows you as volunteers to do what you do best, go out, find stuff, research stuff, bring it back to us. We put it in the mix, come up with a new list of tasks for the next month, and keep repeating until we come up with something that's ready to go. And that way we don't have to wait. We don't have to subject you to the open meeting law requirements. We don't have to go through a formal appointment process or confirmation process. So anyway, that's one thing I'm throwing out there, how we could operate. One person's thought. I'd like to, before I hear from the members of the public, well, I guess let me ask Tony and Anthony, would you want to weigh in on that first, or would you want to hear from the public?
I think this was initially Tony's referral, so I'd kind of like to get his take.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we go to the
Well, I understand Councilor Picciarelli's, he makes an argument for this. I do think that having a formal group makes it a little more likely that people will take on tasks and carry them out. I think that we saw the strength of such a committee in the Watertown Energy and Environment and Energy Efficiency Committee, which I really think is a model, as well as the Stormwater Advisory Committee. But so I think that a formal structure does provide a more successful approach where people will feel more obligated to do the work. At the same time, I should also say, I was in the ordinances trying to figure out some of our ordinances. So I went on our list of ordinances, and I saw the recycling committee ordinance there, and it looks like they haven't removed it from the ordinances, maybe. And so that the concept, the idea of developing an ordinance, I think we could quickly amend the one that's there to, if that's a possibility, amend the one that's there, since it is still on the books. At the same time, I think what I would support would be a parallel process. That is, that we move forward trying to establish a committee at the same time. While that is in the works, we follow Councilor Picciarelli's approach that we try to have I don't know how to set it up, but of a citizen volunteer group that can take on some of the work and be advisory to the Public Works Committee. So I do think, that we should I should think we should continue the process of trying to establish a committee. As we say, this is going to be a long-term effort. If we're talking about trying to reduce our waste 30% in the next by 2030, I think it would be beneficial to have a formal committee that can wrap itself around those goals. And I do think people would take it more seriously if there was a committee. So I would like to see us move forward with that, even if it does take 6 to 8 months to achieve. Meanwhile, though, I think it would be helpful for us to formalize this citizens volunteer committee and to try to begin doing some of the work that's necessary. I should say that some of the people in this room or on this call have done some pretty good research already. And I'm sure that would be helpful. So that's my gut reaction, a two parallel process. Continue to do whatever is necessary, whether it's a rewrite of an existing ordinance, and get that followed through by the recommendation of this committee. So to move forward with it, at the same time, try to formalize the citizen volunteers to begin to doing some of the research. My guess is that some of the people who are on that, who are part of the citizen volunteer list, would end up applying for a permanent position, on the committee. So that's my take. I don't want to repeat myself again, so I'll stop.
I think, Vinny, just one concern I have, and maybe it's unfounded because I can see, obviously a lot of work has been done to date, but I was, the chair of Rules and Ordinances when the CPC ordinance was being debated, and those meetings are probably the largest attended committee meetings since I've been on the council. And, when we finally passed the ordinance and it came time for applications, almost no one applied. So all of the people who were at the meeting who were fighting for, to see certain things in that ordinance, I don't believe any of them actually applied. Now, that, as I said, that may be, completely unfounded based on all of the work that's clearly been done to date. But that, I suppose, is a concern I have. I do see this notice or the memorandum or resolution, I'm not sure what I should be calling it, from the Environment and Energy Efficiency Committee, suggesting that be a more formalized advisory committee. And I was wondering, I see Emma's on this, I was wondering maybe if she could provide some kind of context as to why that was the suggestion for it to be kind of a more permanent group as opposed to an ad hoc group.
I can talk a little bit about it, but I think Meredith is probably.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To talk about it. But I think kind of what Tony was talking about, I think, it's good to have a formalized process because I think it really does hold people to what they need to do. And I know I think that's worked really well for the We3C. So I think we wanted to model it after that, as well as the previous recycling committee. Meredith, you want to jump in here too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the same things as what Emma and Tony have both said, and that the W3C kind of thought about this over the year preceding our memo to you a year ago, recommending this because we were discovering in kind of exploring the issues how large an area this really is and what a long-term project it's going to be. And it seemed there had been questions of, well, couldn't WE3C do this? And we had thought, no, we really couldn't, that we don't have the bandwidth either in terms of all our other projects, as well as how much is on our plate, even, in our monthly meeting to get through our agenda. And that it just seemed to us that in a number of ways that a freestanding advisory committee that had a formal structure similar to the one that we've had would be the most effective long-term way to go. I certainly understand the short-term considerations, and that we don't want to lose, several months to the routine that would be necessary to get something established. So I certainly understand that point. And on the other hand, it seems to me that long-term, it would be very important to have an official committee for the reasons that have been spoken to.
Emma, you had a follow-up on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, additionally, I think if we go sort of the more formal route or do them in tandem, it also kind of spreads out who might be interested in the committee. So, our composting committee that we've been working on is people who are already really involved in several other committees. So just being able to potentially have a broad, application pool or something like that, if, we do more reach out for a formal committee, might be positive for that as well.
Okay. Caroline, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just because it hasn't been mentioned, I just wanted to also say, just in thinking of timing and how you're going to do things, it's not just a normal time and having to deal with open meeting law. We also have to deal with the constraints of COVID, and it makes it much more difficult to meet right now if you have to abide by open meeting law, because it has to be televised. So, and there are limitations on what Watertown Cable Access TV can do. So I just wanted to kind of remind people of that. And that's another, factor in making a decision about how you do this.
Okay. Anybody else? Judy?
I just wanted to underline what a couple of people already said. This is a long-term project. And I think it's going to be important for people to be in this for the next, several years. The citizen volunteer idea is a great temporary fix, but things are changing fast, and the requirements are pretty daunting and ambitious. So new technologies will be coming along, and new opportunities and companies will be coming along. We'll want to stay on top of that.
Right.
The opportunities to do this right.
Okay. Anybody else? Kenny?
Just in terms of a timeline, so folks have an accurate understanding of what that would look like. If this got referred to the council, then a referral will be made to rules and ordinances, probably the second meeting in November. We probably wouldn't meet until late January. Right now we're booking meetings into the beginning and middle of December. So my guess, it's me, Anthony, and Lisa are on that committee. My guess is mid to late January we'd meet for the first time. If it takes a couple meetings to get the particulars together and then refer it to council, I think a realistic time frame to get things put together, Anthony can correct me if he thinks I'm wrong, would probably be next May. The council might be voting on it. So just so folks understand that timeline, if that's the route you'd be looking to go.
Right, and then you'd have to go through the interview and an appointment process, and then vote confirmed by the council, and so it could be a year before that group is formed, which is not. If I could just add one thing is, I like to learn from past mistakes. So part of the reason, and just to go back, just so people know that the entire Recycling Advisory Board resigned en masse on November 18th, 2013. And you may ask yourself, why? And the real reason why is because So the Recycling Advisory Board was created to provide advice and input and advice and recommendations to the Superintendent of Public Works on recycling matters. Once the town council made a referral to go to single stream recycling and develop a plan, the Public Works Committee, this committee, we met literally every month for 4 years to put together that plan. And what happened is we were working directly with the Department of Public Works, and as rightly so, because that's what we're elected to do, the town council, the Public Works Committee was taking the lead on it. And the Recycling Advisory Committee wanted to do something differently. They didn't want to do it the way the council was doing it. And ultimately, then Judy will tell you that the Department of Jerry Me basically stopped listening to the Recycling Advisory Committee because the real recommendation, it was a financial issue being done by the council. I am a little concerned that this Public Works Committee has been tasked with making this recommendation on how to reduce our waste by 30% and coming up with strategies to do that, and having another official body appointed to do the exact same thing, to work in parallel. In my mind, we should be working together, not in parallel. And and again, my own selfish reasons, I want all of you with your expertise in the subject matter to be helping us and providing us, doing the research for us, providing us input and recommendations, so we can make that recommendations to the town council and the administration, that we work together as a team. I understand the formality of it. I would like to, and to Tony's point, he raised that as an issue. I would like to, formally say, who wants to be one of these people, and you would be on the Public Works Committee as a citizen, as a volunteer recycling researcher, or whatever title we may choose to do. And you would be listed in the minutes. You would be assigned tasks. We would expect you to work with us as Tony and Anthony and I work together on a regular basis to solve problems and develop plans. So in my mind, you would have an official role. You would be in the midst of the decision-making process. We would be able to use your expertise and time that the three of us, quite honestly, don't have. And we'll get something done. And again, I'm looking at a year. We got a year to really come up with a good, solid plan, because the trash contract is up for renewal, in a year. And personally, I would want to get this organic recycling pilot program going to help inform us when we enter negotiations with Republic Waste for a successor contract to the one that expires June 30th, 2022. It's back when we created the Recycling Advisory Committee, we did not even have curbside recycling. If we go back to the 80s, we still had the drop-off recycling center at the incinerator. It was in very, very early days. A lot has changed since then, and I think because this is a budget issue, it's a financial issue, it's an operational issue. The decision-making process is really, the recommendation of council really sits with the Public Works Committee. And I think we've outgrown sort of the citizen committee at this point, and I think your value would be to helping us reach good decisions. So that's not number one. Number two, do you really want to be subject to the open meeting law? Do you want to be able to not talk with each other except on cable TV? And an elected chair, and Meredith and Emma can tell you, it can be, it's structured. Of course, they have a staff member. They have Ed Lewis doing it, assisting them. And I don't know. I think we can achieve more working together as one group rather than have two separate parallel groups. But that's just and we can try it. We can try it, and if it doesn't work, we could do something different.
Right.
But that's why I want to get going on this.
Me too. Me too.
So I don't know, ultimately it's going to come down to, and again, we've got, it's not, also Caroline and Kenny are here. They're, we actually have a full quorum of the 5 members of the town council. So, if we can come up with something that makes sense, and that's what we recommend to the full council, how we're going to proceed, then I think, we can get started. And because I want to move on to the second part of this referral, which is actually start developing the strategy on how we're going to put this into place. And I will, once we decide who wants to be an official member, we can start assigning tasks. And just so you know, my wife accuses me of thinking like an engineer, but that's what happens when you are an engineer. I like to come up with a list of a rolling action item list. What needs to be done, who's going to be assigned to, timeline for doing it, come back next month, and then we go through a list. What have person A, what have you found? Person B, what have you found? And we take that, we plug it into the plan, and we come up with a new list of action items for the next week and for next month. And, those get assigned to people and off you go. And we do it as an iterative process month after month until, we get the final plan done. So that's the way we run engineering projects at work, where I work, and that's how I would like to sort of run this to develop that plan. And the nice thing about it, each of you can do, as much or as little as you feel you're able to do. Those of you who want to do a lot more can do a lot more. Those of you who only have a few hours a week, can still participate with a few hours a week. But we will continue to meet monthly, and you can provide your input as we help, like we are now, into help making the final decision. So, but I do want to get going. We lost a lot of time because of COVID-19, and it's going to be, as Kenny pointed out, there's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of stuff going on. We just started the budget process again, for next year, and it's going to be challenging. So your thoughts, Meredith, and then Judy.
Well, this is sort of taking off on the question of the budget process, that I had understood that there had been a recommendation for a town staff position to work on this. Is that still on the list of considerations? Because, we're talking about how much work is involved in all of this, and struggling with how is it going to be done. It would be a huge boon if there were a staff position.
Well, that was one of my top priorities. I pushed that a lot. Unfortunately, we back because of the state aid and the cutback, revenue issues, and we had passed the budget with a $4 million cut in it, which meant that, you don't, when you had to cut $4 million from a budget, you don't add new positions. So all the new positions are on hold.
Yeah.
As any of the counselors will tell you, until we actually get a clear picture from what's actually going to occur from both the state aid standpoint as well as our other revenue standpoint. There's some parts of the economy that is still going strong, but there's some parts that are not going strong. We did just get the preliminary cherry sheets last week that said that for this year, fiscal year 21, our state aid is not being cut. It's going to be the same as last year.
Oh, good.
So, which is less than what was originally promised, because it was supposed to go up about $1 million, but it's flat. So it's not being cut, but the legislature still is not. They're still looking at what tax revenues are going to be. They even can't project what's going to happen in fiscal year 22, which is the budget we're working on now, is for the budget. The legislature still hasn't passed the budget for fiscal year 21. The fiscal year started July 1st, and here we are, in a few days it's going to be November 1st. We still don't have an official state budget for this fiscal year, because there's too many questions about revenue. So it's going to be a little bit, it's not as bad as 2009, 2010, which was a disaster, but it's a little bumpy, and it's just hard to plan when you're not sure what your revenues are going to be. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop working. We still got a lot to do. I am, I've been I've been hoping we were going to get that part-time recycling staff position, and it looked like it was going to be in the budget this year, but that ended up being placed on hold, along with the deputy town manager and some other stuff too. So I mean, that's just, so we will see how it goes, and but we are going to need, we'll figure that out. That'll be part of what we need to do. And just by the way, we're still doing a job search for superintendent as well as a director of administration and finance at the DPW. So we're a little bit short staffed, but that doesn't mean we can't continue to do the research and put together a plan as a public works committee with your assistance. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Tony, Anthony?
I don't want to take away your enthusiasm for this, Counselor, because it's great to hear, and I think that is the same. Other people are equally excited that you're excited about it. Now, clearly, you're modeling this off of what you've done in the past. That is met for 4 years to get the single stream recycling and on a regular basis, and working with DPW. I think that is one model. I also think that the model that Meredith and Emma and others from the WE3C committee, working with, what's his name?
Ed?
Working with Ed, they were able to get the community aggregation bill process through, and that was, that's a model of where they worked hard to get that happening, and they built the public support for it. They did quite a bit of work. Ed didn't do it all. It was the committee and Ed who did it. So I think there are two models that could be used here. Again, I'm putting forth a sort of a hybrid, tandem approach here, as Emma said. Let's make a referral to Tony and Kenny's and Lisa's committee, rules and ordinances, to Anthony's committee, for the establishment of a recycling committee. At the same time, let's formalize your suggestion of volunteer citizens. I don't know how I didn't know that we could actually, they're not on the committee because you'd have to have the full council's approval for that. But maybe we do that. We have make a motion that we have volunteer citizens working on the Public Works Committee, so that we follow your model to see where it goes, but at the same time, take into consideration the valid points made by others around a permanent committee by making a referral. And then Anthony and his team, his committee, will have to go through the process and put it on their to-do list. But at the same time, we can begin to lay out goals, to lay out next steps. So that's I would like us to move forward. I don't want to bog this down with any further. So I'm recommending a referral to the committee on the rules and ordinance for the establishment of a recycling advisory committee, and then make a referral to the full council for the establishment of citizen volunteers to be members of the Public Works Committee. And let's get the process moving. So
Kenny, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Anthony, please.
Just procedurally speaking, if we were to, recommend to the full council and then it gets ordinance, permanent committee established, policy would be suggesting that the full town council and acts would be routed through Public Works Committee. Is that how it would work?
Well, this is, if I could just say, this is sort of, this is sort of the conundrum. And this is why the previous Recycling Advisory Committee sort of failed. So like the community aggregation, that was a great example. Well, that was something that the town council was not working on. So it was proper that the WE3C, worked on that and developed a recommendation to the town manager, which then the town council voted to endorse. In this case, the referral is for this organic food waste recycling is a task that's been assigned to the Public Works Committee. So it doesn't kind of make sense, and this is where things get jammed up before with the Recycling Advisory Committee, is that this is this committee's responsibility. It's not going to be the Recycling Advisory Committee's responsibility. So I'm not quite sure why we would want to create a committee to do something that is already the referral and responsibility of a standing committee of the town council. And that's where I am getting stuck with it, because it doesn't make sense for a new committee to go off and develop, do what's actually this referral is about, because that's what we're here for. So that's why I don't think, now, I agree with Tony, let's get started and let's assign people who want to be official members. Of course, they're not going to be voting members of the Public Works Committee, but you're going to be citizen advisors to the committee and be recognized as such. But I don't see, I just do not see the value of chartering a new committee to actually do what this committee is currently tasked to do. And that's where I'm stuck, because in my mind, it doesn't make sense. And I wouldn't, if Tony wanted to make that motion, I don't think I would support it, recommending that to the full council, because in my mind, it doesn't make sense. It would be duplicating efforts. And then, if we come up, we were actually come up with a recommendation to the full town council to vote on before that committee even got formed, which doesn't make any sense to me. So, I see Judy has her hand up, and then Helen.
I wasn't on the recycle committee when it disbanded, but I know that what we were working on, more than doing homework, although we did some of that too, but was the public education piece, the outreach to the community piece, the organizing events to let people know what was going on piece. I was just looking through the notes that I took. I was only on until 2013, I think. So I wasn't there when it disbanded, but that was the long-term work of that Recycle Advisory Committee. I mean, the homework is really important too, I understand, and you need some of this work to be done for the DPW committee so you can make a good decision. I think the long-term committee is about more than that, or that's just, like to provide advice, to provide information, and then to carry that information, which we as citizens now understand, to the community, because there is got to be some buy-in and some understanding of how this works. So I would think that would be the rationale for a standing committee.
Who else? Was it Helen had your hand up? You have to unmute yourself.
So I was just going to put my 2 cents in, and I'm not an expert on the things that we're talking about, but it seems to me that what you're saying, Vinny, sounds quite reasonable for the present moment. I'm not voting, but I think I might vote for that for now, to get started on the work and see where the work takes the group. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you, Helen. And educate, I do want to pick, and I did, Judy mentioned education, as I said this somewhere in the earlier, is going to be a major piece of this. As we go forward, whether we create I would imagine this group of people would play a central role in putting together education, or I'm not sure how it's going to be carried out. When we ended up doing the single stream recycling, Republic Waste actually was responsible for producing all the education material and disseminating it and to individual households. So that, we can do, I'm not expecting, you to go delivering stuff door to door to people. But we can figure that out. Just to be clear, education is going to be a critical piece of this because it's going to be different, and people need to understand how it works in order to get the buy-in. And I think what the buy-in we did with single stream, we did a lot of education outreach, and we got a significant buy-in from the whole community. So in order to make it successful, education is a critical piece of it. So, sure, Tony.
I want to sort of move this along a little bit, and I always just want to get a sense from Anthony what your feeling is on this.
I think, especially what the comment Caroline made earlier about the Zoom meetings hadn't even really occurred to me. But I think with all the time constraints that we're under right now, and then in addition to the constraints around public meetings, it seems to me that I kind of like Helen's suggestion that we start down the track that Vinny has suggested. And, if we think it's something that needs to be more formalized at a later date, then I think we do that then. So I think right now I would lean towards Vinny's plan of approach. That doesn't mean that when this meeting gets reported out to the full council, maybe the full council will think differently, and a suggestion could be made at the meeting to do something different. But I think right now I would be leaning towards.
Okay. Okay, then, rather than continue this, I would like to, not make a motion, because I don't think it would pass. And I think it's important that we continue moving forward as soon as possible. I would like to reserve the option as we proceed to keep this open. And so I don't know if that means we have to keep it on the agenda, or as long as it's not something that has to be re-referral, right? That we keep it open, see how we're going. If there's a feeling that, this is working, but we'd also like to keep, that parallel approach that I move. As long as that is an option for future, then I'm ready to move. I would suggest that we move forward.
Okay, great. So just turning to that point, that's a great question. So this referral to develop, so our referral is to develop policy guidance for the town council to approve with respect to organic and inorganic waste recycling. So this is going to take many, many months. And you know what? I'm a big believer, keep doing something until it doesn't work, and then we can always do something different, and let's see how it goes. And if it's a problem, we can always change it. I'm not, I try not to be sentimental about stuff, but I just want, do like, as somebody who focuses on efficiency, I like to, focus on the efficiency too, about getting stuff done. So this could be, this referral could be open for a whole year until we actually get the final recommendation done.
Then I would withdraw my potential motion, and then we let's move on and see where we can go. It's okay.
Yeah. So if I could summarize, if that's based on what everything discussed is. I think we need to vote on this, and perhaps let me just throw this out there, and then we can think about it. The motion would be that the Public Works Committee will appoint volunteer recycling researchers. If that's a term, we could always change that. To inform the committee on recycling best practices and waste diversion technologies. And to assist the committee on developing strategies to achieve Watertown's goal of reducing its municipal trash tonnage by 30% by 2030, as well as other goals outlined in the Massachusetts 2030 Solid Waste Master Plan. So I know that's a lot, but I'm trying to capture everything that this group wants to do with this referral. And I think that ties all of them together. So let's, if we want to break that down, so are we happy with the term volunteer recycling researchers, or do we want to use something different? I want to keep the word volunteer in there and the word recycling, but I'm not wedded to the term researchers. Does somebody have a better word for that, or are you okay with that? Oh, okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
So why don't you make, I would, unless there are people need to go sentence by sentence, I think people, it's phrased, but I think there's a general consensus that that's what we want to do. We want to move forward with plans that will reduce our solid waste by
the target, the 30% goal. I think it's important to tie it to the actual Massachusetts.
I want to I'm sorry, could you repeat it, Councilor?
Sure. So the Public Works Committee will appoint volunteer recycling researchers to inform the committee on recycling best practices and waste diversion technologies, and to assist the committee in developing strategies to achieve Watertown's goal of reducing its municipal trash tonnage by 30% by 2030, as well as other goals outlined in the Massachusetts 2030 Solid Waste Master Plan.
My only suggestion is in the first opening that we include specifically inorganic and organic waste.
So recycling, well, I'd left the recycling to just be sort of a catch-all term of all, I mean, both kinds of recycling. And that will allow us to even look at things like yard waste and mattresses and.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, you know, we could add a lot of adjectives in front of recycling, but at the end of the day, it's recycling, right? In all flavors. I mean, what do people think?
I think it's better to keep it as broad as possible so that,
yeah, I mean,
a lot more falls under the umbrella.
I mean, there's all kinds of things, you know. We may be recycling things that we didn't know we could recycle, you know, 10 years from now. So, and certainly to hit the 2050 goal, the 2050 goal for the state is everything is recycled. There is no waste. You know, we're going so back to nature. You know, everything will be, you know, remanufactured or reused somehow. So, but that'll be for somebody else to work on. So we're gonna be a lot older by 20. Kenny will be probably the only one of us still around. So.
Okay, I would second that motion.
Okay, well, why don't you make the motion? Do you want to make?
You're going to have to send it to me, Council.
I'll email it to you. If you, I'll email it. I just, unfortunately, I had to do the
That's
Zoom.
fine. You can email it, and I'll make the motion per yours, and then Anthony can second.
And I'll second.
Okay, so we need a roll call vote. So Councilor Donato,
Yes.
Councilor Palumbo,
Yes. Councilor Picciarelli?
that's a yes. Okay, so that's unanimous. So I think we're already at 8:30, you know, time flies. So what I think we should do is let's get this committee report to the council, if we can get it done on sort of the next meeting, just so the rest of the council knows that this is the action we're taking. And then the next thing I'd like to do is, before we move on, is see who wants to be, designated an official volunteer recycling researcher. And, we will, so we can actually say, here's the people who are going to be, if that's what we think we should do. I think we could say, we're going to have Meredith Field, Ernesto Krashkevich, Emma Clement, Lisa Gifford. If people want to do it and say, these are the people who are going to be on the team working with us. And then we can, when we send out notices and stuff, that those people would be part of the process. Does that make sense, Tony and Anthony?
I think, defer to the people who have been working on this issue for the last year, if that makes sense to them.
I mean, either we can do it today, or you can email me separately and do it. It doesn't matter. I don't want to put anybody on the spot or put pressure on anybody. But we could do that if we want, because that will then get us to the next piece, which is actually start assigning tasks and collecting information. Understanding that we're operating at a little disadvantage tonight because we don't actually have any staff members from the DPW here to provide feedback. So do we want to? It doesn't matter to me. Do people want to put their names in today, or do we want to request people to email later? Meredith.
I just wanted to suggest that beyond the people who've been working on this, that we open it up to invite anyone who's interested. One of our concerns for those of us who have been working on it is how much time and energy we have to devote. So other people who are willing to join, we would be delighted.
So, all right, so that's that's what I'm saying. So maybe it makes sense to say, we'll send out a call for volunteers, and then, the next meeting, people can show up. Who wants to show up, who wants to participate can participate. Helen and then Judy.
I was going to ask if you could send a copy of that statement of, it's not a resolution, but what you want to do, because it was long. If you could send it, one to Meredith and for W3C, and one to Ann Munson, maybe via Tony, whatever.
Yeah, we can get that out.
WFCC.
Yeah, and we can sort of send out send it out more broadly to let people know, and I can even send it to Charlie Bright Roads and ask him if he could put it in that this is what we voted on, and that we'll be seeking members. Caroline? Yeah, and also I don't know if you've got the contact for the younger groups, but that was a Sunrise. Yeah, it'd be nice maybe to get some younger people involved. I have the contact, so I can send something if you. Yeah. Okay. So that'll be good. And again, I don't. It'll be because it's more of an ad hoc kind of thing. If people, I don't want to pressure people to to do things they don't want to do. So I will leave it up to each individual to say participate to the best of your abilities or the time you have available. And if you only have a couple hours a week, that's fine. If you want to spend 10 hours a week, that's great too. And we'll assign tasks. I'm not going to volunteer you for something that you don't want to do. So, I always ask who wants to do what, and I want you to feel empowered to actually be participants, but I don't want to be forcing you to do things you don't want to do. So just so people know, because I know everybody's busy. People got a lot going on in their lives right now. And sure, Judy.
I got two questions. First, it sounds like you got a list of tasks in mind already. It'd be nice to see that. And two, since we're not subject to open meeting laws, does that mean we can work together and talk amongst ourselves while we're doing this research?
Yeah, and you can still keep meeting every, Sunday afternoon or wherever you guys are doing and talk about stuff, because you're not members of a appointed public body. You're just citizens who are coming to meetings to advise us the three of us, who are subject to, the public officials who are subject to the open meeting law. And anything you're going to tell us, you're going to tell us here in open session, which complies with both the open meeting law and the public record law. So there's not, and the whole point of the open meeting law is that things aren't being done, in secret that the public doesn't know about. Everything that all the volunteers are going to do, you're going to come back to us and we're going to talk about it in open session. And whatever documents you give to us, we're going to attach to the committee report.
I'll volunteer.
So, okay. Somehow I knew that, but
Well,
I think because one of your emails, it said something like that. So the tasks, I sort of went through the thing you sent us, the document, and sort of started pulling out some bits and pieces of that. One of the key things I think we want to do is, like any plan to reduce something by 30%, we have to establish what the baseline is. And, so at some point, we're going to need to find out we need to pick a year, if it's going to be fiscal year 20, calendar year 19. I'm not sure, how the DPW keeps their statistics. We're going to need to do that and establish a baseline. So as we go forward and we start making progress, we can actually show the public that, that the line's going down and not up. So it's something like, just thinking out loud, one of the things is sort of benchmarking what other municipalities are doing, and I know Cambridge is doing something completely different in terms of sending it to the Lynn sewer treatment plant versus what Arlington and Newton are doing. So we may want to revisit sort of a municipal benchmarking and find out, who in the Metro Boston area is doing what vendors are available, what current services are available. Do we want to go, the whole curbside versus drop off, the pricing structure. There's a lot of things that we want to kind of put together to sort of figure out. And I'm not sure, we may be best served to sort of maybe talk about that at the next meeting. But the document you provided us has a lot of that information, and that's where I started pulling the bits and pieces out of. So we can use that as our starting point, certainly. I see Eileen had her hand up.
Yes, I'm also willing to say that I'd like to be a volunteer research person. And I also would like to know more of what tasks there are.
Okay. I think I actually have emails for everybody in this group. So I think we'll get that working. But, so certainly, all right. So, but we'll send out a call for volunteers. I think that makes the most sense. And then people can formally, and we'll put together a little sort of synopsis of what we hope to achieve and what it's going to involve. I think that's only fair. What next? I did, before we end the meeting. So two things, Tony. Could you, when we do the minutes, I am thinking that maybe we should put that PowerPoint presentation from the Mass Solid Waste Master Plan. Does that make sense to attach that so people know what the targets are? You're on mute, so.
I was looking at what you sent, and there are a lot of pieces of it, so I wasn't sure which particular one you were referring to.
So actually, if you'll go on that link, it's got everything. There's a full report, but then there's a presentation which has slides, a PowerPoint presentation, which basically is the executive summary of the entire report. We don't need the whole 100-page report. We just need the PowerPoint. I'm wondering, because that lays out a lot of what these goals are, which we've been talking about, which I think we need to use the items identified in that plan if we go through the bullet points.
Okay. I can attach that.
Okay. And the other thing is, I did get an email actually we all got the email from Aaron Dushku about his concerns about this plan going forward, what we're going to ask Republic. what we're doing with the recycling, and he asked that we please attach that to the committee report, is that we acknowledge the receipt of that letter. Many of the things he raised in that letter, other than the plastic bag ban, which is beyond the scope of this committee, is, we've addressed one way or another. So I think, his thinking is aligned with everything else that the rest of the group has put together. So I told him I would give him the courtesy of attaching his email to the committee meeting minutes.
Right.
If you could just make a note of that in the minutes, that would be.
Yeah, I got it. I do want to say, and maybe you all thought you were going to address this. We were took a couple of things that I was thinking of that the committee, actually, the informal committee, was thinking about, is to make sure we know where our recyclables are presently going. What is Republic doing with the things that we presently recycle and in our stream and our single stream? Where are they doing with it? Where are they going? And we would like Republic to have some answers. I think Aaron's email sort of indirectly asks that same question. And the other thing, we were wondering if there's any templates that maybe the Massachusetts area planning, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, but if there might have one, or these other communities that we're going to look at, any templates around cost benefit analysis that might be available. So,
so anyway, so those are two super great questions. So two bits to that. So first of all, Republic is not responsible for our single stream recycling. Their contract is as a hauler. They're responsible for picking it up and delivering it to the Casella single stream resorting plant in Charleston. The Casella plant is a for-profit operation. They accept deliveries from a variety of municipalities in the Metro Boston area, and there's no tipping fee. They're allowed to just bring their waste, and they're currently processing about 750 tons a day. What Casella does is Casella then sorts it and bundles it and resells it, and so we actually don't control the recyclables in the green bin, and Republic doesn't either. They just deliver it. The only thing Republic's responsibility is making sure that it's not contaminated. Each load that's dumped on the floor, they slice it in half, and they look at it, and if they judge there's non-recycled, like plastic garbage bags, if there's bowling balls, hoses, metal pipes, if people have put stuff in the recycling bin that gets picked up, then they will refuse the load, and then Republic actually has to pay to have it taken away as garbage. So a lot of what goes on in Watertown with the enforcement is, sometimes if they look in the bin and there's a garbage bag in the green bin, they won't empty the bin because it'll get rejected at the plant. And there's still this, and talk about education, there are people in Watertown that still put their recyclables in a plastic bag and put it in the green toter, and that gets rejected as garbage, even if it's recycled, because people at the recycling plant will not open a plastic bag and take out all the recyclables. If it's a plastic bag, it's trash. It goes, and Casella doesn't send it to incinerator. They send it to a landfill, because Casella operates landfills. So we actually have no control over what goes in the green bin once it's taken away. That may change, if you read the master plan, the solid waste master plan, it talks about that. One of the thing that they're talking about, one of the slides, slide 21, is market development. The state has realized that, part of the problem we have in Massachusetts is the state set goals for recycling, but it's up to all 351 cities and towns to develop their own trash program, their own recycling program, which is kind of crazy because what we end up recycling in Watertown may be different than what gets recycled in Newton. It's different than what's recycled in Waltham, different than what's recycled in Belmont. And it's very confusing to people, renters who move from apartment to apartment, because what they could recycle in Boston, they can't recycle in Watertown. Different methods of pickup, things are sent to different places. It is, if you had to design a system, this is like, it's like madness. There's no way, there's no way to realize any kind of economies of scale or industrial efficiency when you got 351 cities and towns all doing their own thing. So one of the, and it gets worse, some stuff like glass. So everyone here, was familiar with the glass crisis in Massachusetts, that all the recyclable glass in Massachusetts was sent to one glass sorting plant in Connecticut. And typically what happens, I think Jolly had said something about this, about broken glass. Well, actually, if you go to the Casella plant and you look at it, they have a big machine that spins around and smashes all the glass into 1-inch pieces that can fit through the sieve. And they use front loaders, put in dump trucks, and they would take it to the recycling plant. And what the recycling plant did, it would take dump trucks full of broken glass pieces and feed them through a sorting machine, sort them by color, so they could melt it down. Because if you have green glass, brown glass, blue glass, clear glass, you have to sort them out, because you can't, if you mix it all together, you end up with a gray mass. And if you want to recycle clear glass into other new clear glass, it has to be uncontaminated. So they had this plant it was near Putnam, Connecticut. I forget where it was. And they had things, and glass would go through these tubes, and they would shine a light through it, see what the wavelength is, and will get shunted into different bins, and then they would melt it down. Once that plant closed, there was no place in Massachusetts for these recycling plants to send the glass to. So Massachusetts came up with a solution that's like, oh, well, let's send all the glass to sanitary landfills and use it to cover the garbage bags instead of dirt. Okay, well, that's, if you know anything about, life cycle costs. So the energy you put into creating that glass is lost forever, because now it just becomes dirt, so because it takes a lot of energy to turn sand into glass, and recycling preserves that initial energy cost. Using glass is a landfill material, loses that energy forever. So one of the things on slide 21 is it's a market development to target materials, different kinds of material, food, furniture, mattresses, and other bulk material, glass, and textiles, to develop comprehensive market development plans and connect and leverage with other market development resources, and connect with new waste ban development, and leverage the state purchasing power. So what this is really calling for is for the state to take an active role in funding the creation of plants that could actually process the recyclables that are collected, and develop markets that those things could be used for. So think about like paper. Think about how many things you buy, go to a supermarket, how many things you buy that are wrapped in plastic. Toilet paper, you buy toilet paper, it's wrapped in a plastic thing. Well, you know what? You could develop a wrapper that's not plastic, it's made from recycled paper that's recyclable instead, and it would work just as good. But the market needs to be there, and the market needs to push that. So that's what the state's calling for in this 2030 plan. And also leverage the state purchasing power, that the state would say, well, when we buy toilet paper for every single state facility in Massachusetts, it has to have no plastic packaging, to sort of jumpstart the process. This little bit of connect with new waste management plan, that's exactly what Aaron's talking about. That at some point, the state needs to say, no plastic clamshell packaging shall be sold in the state, period. Because those things are impossible to recycle. There's so many things, laminated material where you got, plastic and paper glued together that are not theoretically, everything is recyclable. Plutonium is recyclable. Theoretically, everything is recyclable, but from a practical standpoint, it's not recyclable. So the state really needs to think about banning certain types of materials, period, across the board. If you want to do business in Massachusetts, those things are not allowed. So that's another piece to it. So when I made the motion, I said, I added that little phrase at the end, as well as other goals outlined in the Massachusetts 2030 Solid Waste Management Plan. These are the things I'm talking about. That, you know, we need to kind of get ahead of these and, you know, make some decisions, because it is coming. And I would rather be ahead of the curve than behind the curve. I find this, I could talk about garbage for the next 4 hours. I find this fascinating and exciting, but I will not. If Susan Falcoff was here, she would be kicking me under the table right now.
She would have kicked you 4 minutes ago.
So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm actually, you know, this is really fascinating. Ever since I was a child, I was fascinated with garbage, but.
I'm ready to convene. Ready to call the meeting for now.
Okay, thank you. And so we're gonna, and again, the other two items on this agenda, because we didn't have the Public Works here to provide input, we're gonna have to continue those to the next meeting. And just before we adjourn, I just want to talk about the the next meeting. Are people okay with a cadence of meeting once a month to sort of work through this issue? And okay, is there any, so will the committee, we'll try to put together some, yes, Kenny?
Sorry, just for next meeting, will you put the two issues we couldn't address tonight first on that meeting?
Yes, we will do that.
Thank you.
Because yeah, especially they're involved contractual issues, and I didn't want to discuss that without the DPW staff here. And I know that there was the so we'll get those. Sorry, it just Matt was supposed to come and he couldn't make it because he had a personal issue to attend to. So and there was really nobody else at the DPW to do that. So. All right, so we'll pick some dates and we'll kind of pencil some stuff in, you know, and see how that works. Okay, so Tony made a motion to adjourn.
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, we got
Aye.
it.
Aye.
You have to roll call.
That's a roll call. We'll pretend that was a roll call. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to it. This is going to be a great journey. We're going to do a lot of good stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it.